Greetings, Matt from Hidden Machine here. You know, I tend to play a lot of games for the channel. So many that I can't always keep up on doing a full dedicated video for each one, especially when, as of late, I'm much more drawn to doing longer, in-depth, sort of deep dives into games, and honestly that takes more time than I'd like to admit, and I just can't do it for every title. And some games I play I also don't think are particularly deserving of that sort of attention. But I'm here, it's early in the morning still, I'm wearing my bathrobe, I'm having my coffee, and I have a few minutes where I'd like to share a few games that I have been contractually obligated to mention in a video in some way. You know, I don't want to get the lawyers involved, but I'm trying to keep up on my end of the deal. And I think some of these games are definitely worth your time and worth checking out, and a few others I think are miserable wastes. Let's find out which is which. First up on the list is Brok the Investigator from publisher developer Cowcat. This game came out in August of 2022, and it's basically an old school point-and-click adventure game with a couple of twists. There are some RPG elements, as well as classic beat-em-up style fights scattered throughout the game. I was immediately intrigued by the character design in this game, because I thought it was reminiscent of a lot of early 90s cartoons that I watched while growing up, and well, once I started playing the game, I realized that the animation does leave a bit to be desired. It still serves its purpose, and if we're being honest, a lot of those old 90s cartoons also didn't have the most smooth animation either, as has been documented on the internet many times in recent years. The world here in Brok the Investigator, and it's Investigator, he's an alligator. The world is cyberpunk influenced. It's got a bunch of funny talking animals, and those cyberpunk elements make themselves shown through the technology the characters use, and there's robots everywhere, and robots have been interfacing with society, and there's some side quests and elements of the main story as well that kind of let you dig a bit deeper into the world they've been trying to build here in this game. There's a level of detail and polish here that I think illustrates a true love for the project, and this is the second game from developer-publisher Cowcat. Their previous game came out in 2016, and is also a point-and-click adventure game, and I will say, Cowcat Connected Universe has been confirmed.
It's not a lake, it's an ocean.
Maybe I'll make a 4-hour-long video on that topic one day, but probably not anytime soon, because I didn't love Brok the Investigator. I think it's very good, especially if you're into the point-and-click adventure games from the 90s and late 80s, but there was something about it that just didn't jive with me, and I really have a hard time putting my finger on it. I really didn't like the combat. It felt very underdeveloped, and whether I was using a mouse and keyboard or a controller, it just never felt good to play. The actual point-and-click adventure type stuff, that works just fine, and it's a formula that you can't really deviate too far from to begin with. Despite its cartoony appearances, the game has a surprising amount of depth, both emotionally. I mean, Brok is a single father struggling to make sense of raising a teenage child, and also in the systems and puzzle solving in the game. It gets pretty deep, but it just didn't really hit home with me. The game has gotten some very positive reviews, so if you're a fan of the point-and-click adventure genre, I think it's worth your time. I'm not the biggest fan of that genre. There's a few that I really love, but there's a lot more that I've started and then gotten kind of bored with, and unfortunately, Brok the Investigator falls into that category for me, but again, it's gotten some great reviews, and I think that this game could be someone's favorite game, and if you like the point-and-click adventures, give it a shot. There is an easy mode that turns off the fights, which I honestly think is a bit condescending, because The fights are clunky and not very well designed, especially in contrast to how good the story and puzzle-solving elements of the game are. So, to call it easy mode, maybe I would have called it adventure mode or puzzle mode, I don't know. It seems like a weird move, but if you really hate the combat, you can turn it off, and it's strange to recommend that since the battling is kind of one of the big hooks of the game. I think this is a fairly new or, young studio trying to figure out how to carve a niche for themselves in a well-tread genre of games. So hats off to Cowcat for doing what they do. I look forward to the next game from this team.
The mail security system.
Please confirm your identity by pressing the touch panel.
Security. Tighter security, always more security. When did the world become so complex?
You've got mail.
I was afraid it was gonna say that.
Interestingly enough, next up we have another developer-publisher who last released a game back in 2016. This time, that 2016 title was Devil Daggers, and developer-publisher Sorath is back again with Hyperdemon. From everything I've read, the game dropped totally unexpectedly without any prior announcement, and while it's not a sequel to Devil Daggers, it is a game that iterates on everything Devil Daggers does and makes it more brutal, more hardcore, and a lot trippier. The gameplay is a lot more complex, and this time around there's a training module where you can go through and learn all of the different moves and get familiar with the different enemy types. The presentation is a bit sleeker overall in the menus and sound. When you complete a run, you can upload it as a gameplay clip, and you can view other clips that have been uploaded and vote on them and stuff. There's a little bit of a social element to it. All around, if you liked Devil Daggers, you're gonna like this, and if you didn't like Devil Daggers, I can't see you enjoying this game at all. It is extremely complex and challenging. It's not uncommon for a session with it to last well under 10 seconds, and getting past that point and playing for a minute or two in these types of games is kind of the whole point. It is extremely punishing, and that's the fun. In these titles, gameplay is measured down to 10,000ths of a second. Earlier this year, there was a world record set for Devil Daggers, which came in at 20 minutes and a little over 36 seconds. So that is world record level playing, and you're likely not going to be getting anywhere even close to that without some serious dedication to these games. Next on the list is Squad 51 versus the Flying Saucers. This is a classic 2D side-scrolling shoot-'em-up with a little bit of a twist. There are 3D environments, and the whole thing is presented in the style of a 1950s sci-fi movie or serial. The live-action cutscenes here are really well made. They're very true to the style, they're cheesy and they're hokey, and I think this game is dubbed into English for my copy, and the dubbing totally works for this style and presentation. The gameplay is super smooth and really fun. The plane has a bit of physics to the way it kind of moves up and down. It feels very natural and intuitive. And there's a whole leveling up aspect where you get to spec into different weapons and abilities and build your ship and then customize which loadout you want to use for any particular level. There's a lot of quality of life stuff going on here, like the ability to skip cutscenes on repeats of levels. And I think overall the game just has a lot of polish and a lot of care put into it, and it's really, really fun. This game rules, and I wish I could say more about it, but it's just a classic shoot 'em up. It nails all the things that you'd expect from this genre, and provides its own unique twist on everything as well, especially in the presentation, which again is super strong, both in the gameplay and the graphics and the backgrounds, but also in the narrative and the, live action cutscenes that surround it. So really, I would give this game a glowing recommendation. It is really, really good, and I think it's a bit overlooked at the moment, and I'm hoping that it can get the attention that it needs, because, man, this is a really cool game. To round out this episode, I have two more games that are not really so great, but I have to mention them, and in fact, all of these games I have to mention because I agreed to cover the game in exchange for a review key, and, I'm trying to do my due diligence here. Some of these games I would gladly pay full price for. Other games I would like to tell everyone to save their money and go elsewhere. The first of these two not so great games is actually the better of the two. It's Mission 1985. This game touts itself as a tribute to the run and gun games like Commando, Heavy Barrel, Ikari Warrior, those mid-80s arcade titles that you would sometimes see home ports of that were never quite as impressive as the arcade versions visually. This one leans more toward the arcade aesthetic rather than the home console aesthetic, and it does what it says on the box. It's a tribute to those games, and it plays just like those games in many ways. My complaint is that the game just doesn't feel totally finished or polished. It's extremely repetitive, the levels are very long, music doesn't actually loop, it just kind of stops, fades out, it's silent for a moment, the track restarts. The sound effects are a mixed bag. I really like the sort of voice samples they have here, and the overall presentation of the characters and the death animations are kind of neat, and then also sometimes kind of repetitive. It's just the kind of thing that doesn't feel totally put together. It just doesn't feel like it's all the way there. And especially when you're going through these levels for so long and you're hitting the same enemies and hearing the same sounds, and it's just kind of, I don't know. There's several different weapons. I really enjoyed using the flamethrower, mostly because it seems to kind of expand beyond its own reach a little bit, and the flames can catch enemies, and it honestly just made the game a bit easier for me, because I was trying to kind of just get through a few levels to see what the game had to offer, but I put this one down after a while because I just got sick of doing the same thing over and over. I also feel like there are some insane difficulty jumps at the bosses where things go from kind of tedious to brutally difficult, and again, it's a balancing issue, it's a polishing issue. This game has heart. I think it could be really good if it got a little more work on it, but at the moment, it's $5. If you love those arcade games that I mentioned, Ikari Warrior, Commando, Heavy Barrel, Guerrilla Wars, Mercs, you're gonna like this game for a minute, and then you're gonna go, oh, well, I'd rather just play the originals. They're a little more put together than this. But again, I think this is the first game from this developer publisher, and I look forward to seeing more because it's definitely got heart. There is some fun stuff going on in the presentation, and they did nail the mechanics. It's just kind of not quite there, and I can't really recommend it even for $5.
Mission 2.
Lastly, we have a game that I think you should avoid at all costs. It is Dungeon Master from developer-publisher Man's Club. Now, I knew going into it that this was going to be a meme game, potentially with some offensive humor, and I don't mind. That's all right. I wanted to see what was going on. I like, sometimes I like a really edgy game. I like, you know, kind of transgressive sort of bullshit like that every now and then, just to see what's going on. And, you know, sometimes it's fun. Sometimes you get a Postal 2, and sometimes you get Dungeon Master. This game is asset flipping and just kind of lazily put together. I was expecting more laughs. I was expecting a little more creativity, even if it is just kind of like a, you know, copy and paste, asset flip kind of thing. I still expected a bit more, and what I got was just kind of broken and repetitive. It's a bunch of shitty enemies that just kind of tout the same few meme voice lines. It's nothing. It's nothing, really. You go from one area to the next. I believe I just got stuck at one point, so I didn't finish the game. Levels last too long. It's confusing. You might get a chuckle, especially if you're with some friends and you like this kind of, you know, 4chan kind of humor. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. Well, I do know what I was expecting. I was expecting to have some laughs. I was expecting something kind of edgy, and instead I just got something real dumb that wasn't fun to play. It was a chore. It sucked. It sucks. It sucks. They know it sucks. The point wasn't to make it good, but I was hoping for it to be funnier than it is, and it's not. I don't like shitting on a game, but also, it's 69 cents. It's made to be shit on. So that's it. That's my video game roundup for November of 2022. Did any of those games stick out to you? Are there any that you've played that you have some opinions on? I'd like to know. Meet me down in the comments. If you like this, well, we have plenty of other videos where I'm fully clothed and fully caffeinated. I'm not quite there yet. But we also have plenty of videos where I'm not there at all. If you think this channel is great, but I'm the worst part of it, don't worry. Jordan and Andrew are there to take care of the rest. And if you want to support the channel further, be sure to check out the link to the Patreon. We have some exclusive content up there for everybody. And until next time, see ya.